Well, like you, Jen, we all have these experiences, and in the novel is actually um, based upon my experiences, my life story. And the reason I wrote it as a novel was because I could see that everyone that is moving forward in life is going through these struggles. And there's a lot of self-help out there, but there's a lot of areas of self-help that are not really giving us the answers we need. There's something missing. There has been something missing these last 20 years in what's out there. And we're all recognizing it. I mean, as women, right? We've talked, Jen and I talk often about how women have lost their way. As women, we're always the pinnacle of society. And now somewhere we're confused. We're not connected with our femininity anymore. We're not connected with our female power. And and when I speak to people, women, a lot of women, they don't even know what that is anymore. And it's really important. I walked down that path myself. And I recognized that I was living in a time where my mother was one of those women that took a step forward, that brought power back to the feminine, brought a respect, a place in society where voices were heard. But in the process, she was part of an old way of thinking. She was part of that where she was brought up by a woman, my grandmother, who stayed home. Women didn't work very much outside the home. And the woman was expected to be there to raise the children so their husband could go out and work. And it's so interesting because actually, before I came here, I was cleaning out my office and I came across my baby book. Those baby books sometimes our mothers do. My mother was a real stickler for that stuff. And I was the first, I'm the eldest of three. So the first one always gets all the attention, right? And the books get filled and so on. But as you have more and more children, the book kind of goes to the side because it's like, hello, life goes on, right? It's not such a huge deal. But it was so interesting because I pulled down this book and I'm looking at all the women in it and all the advertising and women with diapers. They're all dressed in these dresses and they're like the what do you call that, Jen? That movie where the women were robots? The men turned their women into robots?
Oh, uh, uh, I know
Do
what
you
you,
know that?
yeah. So they were like, they're all happy all the time.
Yeah. And the men actually sent their women to be turned into robots so that they were always dressed nice, always willing to serve and so on. Anyways,
I have
so
it in chat. I can't remember the name of
hey,
that.
I know I can't remember that name, but anyways, I always thought of like I could see my mother, right, living this superwoman, and I call it the Superwoman Syndrome. And being a product of her life, she worked full time. She was a school teacher. She cooked all our meals. We had like suppers, family suppers, the whole five course meal all the time, homemade food. I mean, she did all the macrames, the sewing. She did everything, and she maintained this, but it took its toll on her. And so, being a product of that kind of mother, when I got into a certain level, I just represent, hello, I got married young, had kids. I stayed home for the kids the first few years because for myself, I felt it was very important. But I still had all this stuff I was doing. And it was okay. It was okay. My plate was full, but it was okay. But then I jumped back in. I was like, I needed to feel fulfilled. I needed to get out there. I needed to have a voice. And so I jumped right into the whole career thing. But what's really interesting is that I still kept doing all this other stuff that I felt obliged to do. Even though my husband helped me, he was busy doing his thing, right? And so we get caught up in this whole rigmarole. And we sustain it while we're young. That's pretty easy in the 20s, our 20s. And in our 30s, it kind of like still, we're starting to hit some walls. But then life throws us something that just puts us over the edge. And this is what happened for myself. Is life threw me a curveball that I was maxed out at the end of every day. I mean, I was hitting the bed at 7 or 8 o'clock. I was up at 5 or 6 to get all the lunches done, to get things done, to be ready for work. Uh, all this stuff we have to do, and there was nothing left for those unexpected things. And this is where I talk about in the story of that journey of how we sometimes get hit with these unexpected things. Not everybody gets sick from it, but some people just go through a inner search, questioning, right? And Jen and I talk about that often, how different personalities handle it with differently. But in the end, it is all about energy. It's all about managing our energy. Where are we putting our attention? How much is really important? How much isn't? What is important? What are our goals? What are our real goals? And people, we don't often question that. And I recognize when I went through that phase of my life, I had to stop. I had to question, why did I get to this point? I have no choice but to make changes, make different decisions, and start looking at, take the time to look at why I'm doing this. Why am I doing that? And when I say, yes, I'll do this, or yes, I'll help you, or I will do those extra hours at work, I could feel a pressure that I didn't want to. But my mind, the ideas I was programmed within, the structures, I call them, I felt obliged. Oh, a good person does this. A kind person does this. Or a good worker puts in her hours. A good person doesn't complain. And we have all of these kind of ideas. And this is what we need to start questioning, first of all, is where do we put our energy? Energy management one-on-one is I can help you tap into unlimited energy. That's easy. But if you don't make shifts in where you put that energy, if you don't recognize where you're wasting energy or where it's total waste of your time, or that's simply not important for your goals or who you are, then you're just going to put more energy into those things as much as, and it's just a forever cycle, right? So I recognized that I had to go on a soul search, right? Soul searching. And in the book, it is that story. I talk about the story of basically my life at that point. And I would say the story spans from, I don't know, I talk about my childhood and the different things that happened and why I came to be, to give some background. But it really begins whenever I got married and all of how it unraveled. And then whenever I had that life awakening, that moment of haha, where I had to stop and question my values, question my direction, question my career, question my actions. And we're all at that point at some points. And then it's the journey of how that progressed and how I discovered my soul purpose, how I discovered that there was a bigger purpose than changing diapers, cooking meals, being a good wife, being a good daughter, being a good friend, that there was another purpose that went a little deeper and how that surfaced. And it all was about self-care. It was all about putting me first without being selfish. So I call it being selfish without being selfish. I think you can all understand that. And it's important that we recognize what that looks like. And for myself, it was a lot of things. I'm an artist by nature, and I'm very good at storytelling. I'm very good at seeing things, creating things. And I come from a family of very gifted people. And today, which is really cool, we can talk about these things, right? I come from a family of seers. And what is that? There was a time when I was young, my father used to talk about that, about his family and how, they used to know things. And today we call it intuition, right? We call it mother's intuition or so on. We're starting to recognize, hey, there's a lot more to life than just what we were told in the past. And so I started having different experiences, different things happening that unravel in the book. And it allowed me to have a deeper look at that inner world, my muse, and what that was about. And it led me to my own personal soul purpose, which is to bring another level of science to the world in these times of evolution. That's the bottom line. And Jen and I talk about this often because it's so frustrating, right, Jen? Because the school, Chakaura, is so different than what's out there. Everything we do, it's a different language, it's a different approach, it's a different way of thinking. And this is the thing, it's a different way of thinking. It brings people to experience at a deep level, another level of themselves that they don't usually take the time to look at. That is about energy management. It's about creating a space for you to understand why you do things the way you do, why you say yes when you want to say no. Why and how can you say no without anybody being upset? Right. And this is a psychology, it's an energy management encompasses action to do something. It encompasses also an understanding, knowledge of what is actually going on behind the scenes or what is draining you. A lot of people will talk about empathy, right? I walk into a room and I don't like the feeling of the room. Well, what is that? That's energy. You're picking up a feeling of energy in the room. Other people will say, you know what, when that person comes near me, I just love the feeling of that person. They feel so great. I don't want to leave them. I just want to listen to them all the time. Well, that's energy because they're not talking, right? Everything is about energy. And today is time that we, as a human being, begin to look at a deeper level of what that means for us. And this is what I bring. This is what the energy self-care management is about. It's about having a deeper understanding that we are first and foremost energy and how we share that energy, how we express that energy, how we use that energy, where we get that energy. Yes, where, because the energy doesn't necessarily just come from food or the sun. We have another bigger source of energy that most people don't know about. And this is what I teach about, is this other source that is unlimited, how to tap into it. And usually the biggest problem, Jen, is that people have too much energy and they say, well, I got too much. What do I do with it? I can't go to sleep at night, right? Now, isn't that amazing? So it's like Chakaura, I've discovered Chakaura after I wrote the book. So this book is my story before I discovered Chakaura. This book is a story of what it looks like when we get up one morning and we say to ourselves, this is not the life I want to live. Or my job is not what I want it to be. Or, I want to do things differently. Or I want more time for myself. Or, you understand? We all have these moments where we start questioning. And that's what that story is about. It helps you recognize those moments because we get so caught up in everything that we don't even have time to recognize what that looks like until it's too late. So I tell you, ladies, it's funny, it's all ladies today.
It's all ladies.
Yes, that the fact that you are here is a step that somewhere in your life, whether it's at work, at home, or a combination, you're looking for change. You're looking to shift. You're looking to understand a deeper understanding of it. And you're in the right place.
Well, and I'm going to jump in here because I think, Michelle, and I don't know, and I can maybe just see a nod or a shake or a little bit of a hand gesture there. I love what you just said about the understanding because I don't think I'm alone here. Coming from a very scientific background, I like to understand. And sometimes in the past, I would get caught up too much in the understanding instead of the doing. And what first attracted me to you, Michelle and Chakaura, was that you talked about a higher science.
Oh, definitely. And you know what, Jen? That's true because like everybody, I don't, this whole woo-hoo stuff there, it's like, it's not me. I'm telling you. And I mean, I do woo-hoo stuff. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Like if you read the book, you'll see like she is, whoa, Like, and people say, like Jen says, often says to me, like, I'll meet people and they'll say, "Oh my God, you're nothing like what I thought you would be."
Very true.
And I mean, and I don't believe in the woohoo stuff. I just couldn't accept half the stuff because it didn't feel right, right? Like, and when people say, "Well, are you this and are you that?" I says, "Well, no, I don't want to be put into that box because I don't believe in the woohoo stuff. I believe in a concrete science. I will not teach anything until I've understood it, until I've found the science of it, and then I could explain it to my logical brain. I could show people and help them understand because we don't understand that anybody can be woohoo. We all have the gift, right? We all have gifts. We can all be telepathic. We can all be psychics. You hear this all the time, but it's not grounded on anything. And the reason why our logical brain goes, "I don't believe in that crap. I don't want to go near that," is because somewhere we know it's not grounded. And that if we step in through that door without at least a bit of information of how it works, we're going to end up hurting ourselves or we're going to end up on the other side. And that is a smart person. That is an intelligent person. And when your logical brain says, you know what? It speaks to me, but I need a little more. Well, that's your body telling you, be a little careful. Maybe you're going into something that you need to learn more about.